everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm here today to chat to you about the results from my 5-star predictions for 2021. And for this installment of 5-star predictions, I decided to read books from the African diaspora. So books written by authors of partial African descent in some way. There were 2 nonfiction books on the list and 3 fiction, and overall I was really happy with the results, but I only did get 2 5 stars out of the 5, and the other ones were 4.5 stars, so it was so close, so close. So I think I did really well at pinpointing books that I would really enjoy. So I'm just going to briefly talk you through them. The first one I read was Shame on Me, An Anatomy of Race and Belonging by Tessa McWatt. Tessa McWatt is Canadian by way of Guyana, and she has a very mixed heritage. So she has African roots, she has Indian roots, Scottish roots, and Chinese roots. So as she was growing up, when she came to Canada and started going to school in Canada, she definitely encountered a lot of challenging and racist stereotypes around her because of that combination of being so many things. And the book follows different periods of her life and also dissects different parts of her body and how those things can be identifiers. There's some absolutely beautiful passages in that book. The beginning, she kind of creates this picture of 4, I believe, of her female ancestors, and she kind of constructs worlds that they could have been living in and relates how those women are living inside of her. And I thought that was just such a beautiful and eloquent way to begin the story. And her perspective on the world and her way of dealing with who she is as a mixed race person, I thought was just spot on and fascinating to read. So it was definitely a 5 stars. Really loved that one. The other 5-star was Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi, and I know that that there's a lot of people that love this book. I'm certainly not in the minority here. It was just a fascinating look at coming from Ghana and what that experience of leaving Ghana was like for one sister, and then what staying in Ghana was like for another sister. It's a generational story. It goes, each generation gets a chapter, and you are following the lineage of this family, but in a kind of unconventional way. And I think the way the story was structured was incredible. The periods of time that Yaa Gyasi chose to focus on were super fascinating, and the characters themselves, I liked all of them. There wasn't one section where I didn't like who I was learning about, and I think that's rare for a novel of that type. I've been, in the past few years, I've read several novels that kind of follow that style of like a different chapter, a different person, and I found that inevitably there's a chapter of a person that I'm just not interested in learning about, and that did not happen in Homegoing at all. I was totally engaged the whole time, so I thought that it was just a really successful novel. So now we get to the 3 4.5 star reads. Cockroaches by Scholastique Mukasonga. She is of Rwandan descent, and this book chronicles her family's horrible ordeal that they had to go through being Tutsi and in Rwanda. And it's really a testament for her to her family who were murdered in the genocide. And she, you know, it was fascinating for me because I didn't really know anything specific about Rwanda. And I learned so much through reading this book. I thought that it was so important that it's out there so that people can learn this story and hear, you know, truth spoken about it as a situation. But when I'm reading a memoir, I really want to be emotionally pulled in. And while it was emotionally harrowing to read Scholastique's experience, there was a level of remove for me in that I never was really fully immersed in it. Personally, I was always kind of feeling a little bit separate from the narrative, and at times her desire to chronicle everyone else, I think, just slightly watered down her own personal story, which I think I probably would have been more invested in if she would have gone into more of her life. Because I know at the end of the book, when she goes back to Rwanda and feels like she belongs there for the first time in her life, it was very, very powerful part of the story for me. So 4.5 stars for that one. A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James. I really appreciated this book. It was a 4.5 star read for me. It didn't hit the 5 stars because I just didn't emotionally connect to any of the characters. But in terms of a novel that was crafted in a way that was so compelling, that I read about, you know, gangster violence and just things that I would not normally be engaged in reading, I think is a testament to how great of a writer Marlon James is. And I'm just quite a fangirl of Marlon James now, and I definitely will continue and read all of his work. And this is the book of his that won the Booker. So obviously it's, you know, it has its place in lit history. And so I'm glad that I read it, and I'm really interested to continue on and read more of his backlog. And then number 5 was Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi, and again 4.5 stars. Freshwater was an experience to read. I think following the narrative as Emezi constructed it was, you know, an adventure and something new and fresh. And I always appreciate that when I'm reading a novel, to not feel like I'm reading something I've read before, and to be, you know, going through a new experience. There's some deep and important things that are issues that are touched on in this book from a spiritual perspective and from a mental health perspective. You are just given another way of looking at these situations. And so I thought that was very powerful and very interesting. And I definitely I'm glad that I read it. And again, Akwaeke Emezi is another author whose work I will read all of. I believe they have their memoir is already out. They have a young adult, or sorry, a middle grade novel out, which I'd like to read with my son. And they also have, I believe, a book of poetry and a love story coming out in 2022. So they're so prolific and their work is so powerful. I read The Death of Vivek as well in 2021, and that book was a 5 star. So I think it's interesting. I think Freshwater just has a bit of a different feel to it, and so couldn't really hit that 5 star for me because I think it's a less emotional novel, and it's a bit more spiritual and intellectual, whereas The Death of Vivek is all about relationships and feelings. And so I definitely related more and connected more with that narrative than I did with Freshwater. So those were my five-star predictions for 2021. I will be doing another 5 books for 2022, and I will be releasing a video soon talking about those books for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.